Hey guys, it's your host, Bailey Cartwright. Welcome to the Stronger Scars podcast, where I invite others to dive deep into the ups and downs of physical and mental scars. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Stronger Scars podcast. I know I'm a few weeks behind. I got COVID and I was very sick and down for the count. And we're back and we have a great guest today. So I'm joined with Courtney Thrun, who is actually in my MBA program with me at Brandeis University. She's on the women's basketball team there and she's very social and she's a jokester. So I think you guys are going to love her. So Courtney, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Courtney Thrun, as Bailey said, and I play on the basketball team at Brandeis. I'm from Canada, but now I'm living in Massachusetts for school. And yeah, that's about it.
So let's go back a little bit to your process of, being a good basketball player in high school, deciding to go play basketball in college. What kind of was that process like? Because you guys will very soon find out Courtney did not start her college career at Brandeis. So kind of an interesting story. So let's just kind of start from the beginning.
All right. It's actually kind of a crazy story. I was planning on running track and field until I want to say halfway through my senior year of high school. So by the time I realized I really wanted to play basketball, it was pretty late in the recruiting process. So I ended up doing what one of my close friends had done, and going to prep school for a year. So that's how I ended up in Massachusetts in the first place. I went to Wilbraham and Monson Academy, and it's deep in Western Mass. And then while I was there, I played AAU and ended up getting an offer from Adelphi University in Long Island. And that's kind of how I, in a roundabout way, got there.
Okay, interesting. So I did not know that you did the extra year. So let's kind of talk a little bit about, obviously, when you think college athletics, a huge piece of it is the recruiting. It's the part that I think stresses people out the most. So what advice or what kind of tips or tricks would you say for someone who is oh crap, I'm late into the recruiting game, but I know this is what I want to do? What advice would you tell someone going through that?
Honestly, first piece of advice would be don't let yourself fall behind, because obviously I experienced that and it was super, super stressful. So either way, if you're behind, you're going to be stressed. But if you do get into that situation, I'd say the most important thing would be outreach. Reach out to everybody. You never know what's going to be a good fit for you. And that way, at least you'll have some options when it comes down to it.
Right. It's so interesting too, the whole recruiting thing. I know, obviously the essence of this being an injury podcast, even if you are ahead of the game and then you get hurt,
yeah,
it's you always kind of have to be thinking in the back of your mind, what if, and just go into it knowing it might not be a perfect straight line.
Yeah. I actually even after this whole thing, I broke my wrist the summer before I went to prep school. So that set me back even further. I had to get surgery on it. It was a whole thing.
And then, so prep school, that I when I think of that, I feel usually you think hockey goes to junior college usually, right?
Hockey?
Yeah, don't they?
Oh, okay. Maybe. I don't know.
Or maybe I'm thinking baseball. I don't know, one of those sports.
Oh, yeah. Junior college. So that's different. This is high school.
Oh.
Yeah. I it was foreign to me too. It's kind of weird.
I'm curious, so playing, I guess I don't know how to word this without it seeming I don't know, but you were willing to go a whole nother year of school to go play college basketball. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yes. So I could have played college basketball in Canada, or I don't know, run track and field, but we don't have as good support of sports basically yet. Or at least when I was going out, my understanding was that I could get my tuition paid for, and that was kind of it. So I know here, in the United States, you really can get everything covered. So my mentality was do an extra year and then I can get go to school for free.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I also didn't realize about financial aid packages and things like that. So that's another thing I would honestly recommend people look into. It's
yeah.
You know.
Okay, so then my next question, D3 school can't give athletic scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
So then what was that kind of like? Because like, was it Adelphi? Were they, what D were they?
Two.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
can't, right.
Yeah.
So then what was that kind of like? Because like you just said, you were like, okay, another year of school and then I can get college paid for. And then
Yeah.
you're at a school that you can't get athletic scholarships.
Yes. And that was a really scary part about transferring for me is like you're giving up. For me, I was giving up a full ride and I was not sure if I was going to get anything else. So it's really risky. But um, by that point, I had realized that I would qualify for financial aid at like certain schools because like I was raised by like a single mom and she's a teacher. So I like knew that wouldn't be like too much of an issue. But like I ended up I don't know if I can say this, but I ended up like not having to pay. I pay less like going to Brandeis. Like I don't pay really anything.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let's kind of talk about your experience at Adelphi because first of all, I'm like, this is a question I'm curious about. I always like assume this, but I don't know if it's true. Is D3 because like let's be real, spectrum D1 to D3. Like I feel like there's so much weight put on where you end up going. It's a big deal. Like D1's glamorized.
Yeah.
What is the difference between D2 and D3? Because like I always assumed, and I feel like people have told me that D3 is somewhat better than D2. Is that wrong?
Okay. So it really depends. Like in total, I would definitely say D3 is better than D2. Like obviously depending where you go.
Yeah.
Um, in my opinion, like Division 2 puts more money into athletics, but they don't have as high kind of like academic standards,
Okay.
like typically like the universities. Um, other than that, majority was just like size. That's what I'd say. Like divisionally for basketball, I find it's mostly height, honestly.
Really?
Like no, and like obviously there's people who like are 5'2" and go D1, like things like that. But just as a general like differentiator, it's mostly like height and athleticism.
Yeah. It's funny. I was actually talking to our coaches last night just about recruiting processes and how I felt like in my process, like I'm gonna not lie, like D3, I was like, I'm never going to a D3 school.
Yeah, no, literally.
You know what I mean? And like everyone on my team was like, it was like shunned. If you were going D3, you were like not the good ones on the team. So I just like I think it's important for younger athletes to hear things like this that yeah, it's great to go D1, but expectations are different. Like you're putting a lot more of your life on hold for soccer or whatever sport it is. So I just think it's important to like give that spectrum of it's okay where you go if it's the right
Yeah,
fit.
literally. It's also like not to bring this to like a gendered place, but majority of female athletes aren't like there's not a future like in a like professional setting. Like we're here for the most part to get our education paid for.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of sacrifices have to be made to play D1, and it's not always like the right decision for even if you are like an amazing athlete. Like sometimes it makes more sense to like get a better education. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And like sure there's select D1 schools that are gonna obviously like have a great education too. It's just
Yeah. Notre Dame.
right. Yeah, I gotta shout it out. But no, I think it is really important for younger athletes to like truly understand the recruiting process and not focus on a title.
Yes, people get way too caught up in it.
Right. Okay. Back to your experience at Adelphi. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit about what was going on, how it was for you. I know that you were playing and doing very well. So I'm just kind of curious, like what all built up and led to you changing.
So at Adelphi, let me think. Okay, so I got there 2019 and then I stayed there for 2 years. So my freshman year, I went in with like a really big freshman class. I want to say it was 7 of us. I liked a lot of the people that I met there. My basketball experience was not like great, wasn't very good. But at the end of the day, um, I didn't love the way the program was run, and I didn't like how they played basketball, if that makes sense. Like I knew that I wouldn't thrive there just based on the way that they like ran certain plays, how they,
Right.
how they worked the ball around. Like I just knew I wouldn't have like thrived there. So I decided it was probably in my best interest to look around for a higher academic school as I was about to finish up.
Right. I think it's interesting to me, like myself included, a lot of athletes I have on here, whenever we're talking about an experience that maybe wasn't as positive, it's kind of crazy to me how much we like shut down a little bit and bottle it in because we don't want to make a program look bad. And, you know, I totally get it, but it's just like everyone's story is so unique. And, you know, just because maybe you didn't have the greatest time doesn't mean somebody else didn't. But like, I hope that like people know that like your story is validated, whatever you were feeling is validated, and like that isn't something that you should hide, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, like yeah, I just feel like a common thing from people is when you're unhappy, obviously the right decision is to look elsewhere. So kind of talk about what the recruiting process again was like when you were transferring and, you know, looking, like you said, you were looking for higher education, which is, I think, crucial. Brandeis is a great place. The MBA program is a great place. So just kind of walk us through what that process looked like for you.
All right. I had been given like some advice that it was a bad idea to transfer after 1 year, like credits wise.
Right.
So after 2 years, I like made the like official decision, like this is not the spot for me. But I did want to give it like a fair shot as well. So when I decided that it really wasn't like working out, I waited till our season was over. And I just like texted my coach or called her, can I come in and like just meet with you? And I told her like my reasons why. I told her I would be transferring, and basically that was it. We had a pretty like reasonable or like a pretty good relationship, and she did help me with the talking to other coaches, and I like reached out to all the high academics kind of in the area just because I didn't unless I could go somewhere warm, I didn't want to like make a whole jump to a whole new place. But Carol Simon, like from the basketball head coach, emailed me back right away. And then I want to say like a couple weeks later, I was like visiting Brandeis and had applied. So it moved kind of fast for me. I looked at Rochester, which is also in our conference. I looked at oh, that's where you are right now. Yeah. So I visited Rochester. I actually had a really great visit, but they didn't offer me as much like financial aid as Brandeis. And then, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
Okay. Interesting. I want to talk a little bit about that quick process move because I've had some friends who I know, like, I don't know if it's different in D1 or whatever, but I think the premises is kind of the same, but the whole like daunting process of, like you said, telling your coach like, hey, it's not working, to like putting yourself in the transfer portal. If you're going to get help from that coach that you're with, like that's in the air. It's not always probably going to be like sunshine and rainbows for them. And then obviously making the jump of going to a new place, like kind of talk about, you know, if that didn't look quick, like what were kind of like the things that stressed you out in that process?
Okay. Even though it was quick, like I was still pretty stressed about it. Especially like I didn't know what my like financial aid was gonna look like. Like I really was super unsure. And I think that's kind of the worst part of it, is the uncertainty. I was kind of thinking like, am I gonna have to move back home? Like, what's this, you know, like worst case scenario, what does this look like? And it's really scary because you can get like caught up thinking about it.
Right.
Just being like really worried while you're trying to do all this other stuff. Like you're trying to keep working out, like obviously like trying to stay in shape, trying to do well in school still. So it's just stressful.
Yeah. And then I'm kind of curious, this is something I think I've kind of talked to you a little bit about, but like it's really tough transferring into a team who already knows each other, who's already connected. Obviously, this was a few years ago now that you came in, but at that point you were the new girl and you weren't a freshman. I feel like that's kind of a different transition.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that? What was that kind of like?
So I was actually pretty fortunate. My team was like really good that year. We had a pretty good team. I don't know if we had like a good team culture, but like when it came to basketball, but we all like got along. Like everyone got along and everyone made me feel super welcome. I also ended up making a good amount of like friends on other sports teams or like involved in other things. pretty like quickly. So I was just like fortunate, honestly. And then obviously as I stayed, I got closer with my teammates because, you know, year after year.
You are a very social being, so I feel like you make that wouldn't be hard.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so you get to Brandeis.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about, life of Brandeis, moving, when did you tear your ACL? So Courtney's injury was an ACL. I'll let her tell the story, but
So a quick timeline. I transferred to Brandeis 2019. Played that season.
okay.
Then we all got sent home 2020 for COVID early. We go back the next year. That season is like canceled due to COVID. And then that, like the end of that March, I tear my ACL. So then I missed the next season, which was last season.
Okay, so before we talk about the ACL logistics,
Yes.
I'm curious, what's going on in your head? Why did I transfer? Like, why did I put all of these things on the line for COVID and then an ACL tear?
Yeah. Again, I like consider myself pretty fortunate because it would have been really easy to look at it like that, but I was in a unique situation because I had transferred as a sophomore from Adelphi. I had already used 2 years of eligibility. And then when I got to Brandeis, they didn't accept enough credit. So I had to repeat my sophomore year.
Oh.
Yeah. So in repeating my sophomore year, it would have meant that I didn't play basketball my senior year. So when COVID happened, it balanced me out. And I was like, oh, okay, like perfect. I'll get to play my senior year. Then I tore my ACL. But I had already wanted to go to the business school to get my master's. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just play this year then. Which honestly, like I'm not super mad about. I'd kind of rather play this year than last year, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Interesting. That is interesting. Like it's kind of crazy how things work out,
It's really crazy.
So walk us through the ACL.
Okay. Like how it happened or
Like how it happened, like
okay.
just, I know I've said it on here before, like an ACL is an injury that like when you see someone go down, you see how they're crying and how they're holding their knee. You just know, and it's tough.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. This was literally during practice during the year where we did not have like games, but one of my teammates like on our scrimmage teams was like going up for a layup, and I like went up for literally the rebound, no contact, and on the way up I heard like a pop, and like people around me heard the pop, and then like yeah, just like oh, after that it was just pain.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way I felt, like my coach was like, yeah, like I'm not a doctor, but like you definitely tore your ACL. Sorry. I was like, that's great.
So, I mean, recoveries are what, 6 to 9 months, usually around higher to 9.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I can only imagine how it felt like finally getting to play again. Like, everyone's excited. Like, we just sat in quarantine. And then you're like, okay, I get to sit in like injury quarantine for 9 months. So,
Literally.
so I don't know. I think you're open to talk about mental health and stuff, but I'm just kind of curious, like, kind of like mentally how the whole process was for you.
Oh, that is tough. Honestly, last year. Okay. So okay, let me get a hold of my thoughts before I start going. Yes. Okay. So the surgery itself was a very miserable experience. And I had to do it while I was like at Brandeis and I was living in one of the dorms, Ridgewood. So it was like, that was not a good time. But I had a lot of people like around to support me and like help me through that. Thank goodness.
You gotta pause. Okay. I'm curious. I don't know much about like the dorm life at Brandeis, but
yeah,
one of the things like that was one of my biggest topic discussions when I first started the podcast was just like people don't understand how hard it is to be on crutches or like I don't know if you get like a scooter, wheelchair, whatever, but like having non-accessible things when you're going through that, and obviously people with disabilities who have to deal with that every day, like it adds so much to your plate. So what did that look like for you? Like what were the accessible things?
So for me, the most difficult part was the first like I don't even remember how long I was on crutches, maybe like a week or two, but that was definitely the worst because it's like you can't carry anything. You're trying to get around, Brandeis is like hilly. My car is stick shift, so I couldn't drive either because my left leg, like I like need both legs to drive, and like the clutch, like it was my left leg that I injured, so I couldn't hit the clutch, so I literally couldn't drive.
You didn't have a scooter or anything?
I had my roommate Shannon would like drive me if I needed to go somewhere. But like that's what I'm saying. Like if I didn't have like the support, it would have been awful for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like if you're expected to crutch around a college campus, like, come on.
And like a lot of my classes also like were Zoom accessible. So that's another thing. Like I wasn't like trudging around on my crutches, but I could have been, and that would have been awful.
Okay. Sorry. I just had to throw that out there because that's something that always frustrates me is when you were like when people literally can't go somewhere or do something because of what is put in front of them. And like again, like people with disabilities who deal with that every day of their lives. I just ridiculous. Okay, onward. Sorry.
Oh, I don't even. Okay, where was I? Do you remember?
I asked you about mental health.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the whole getting the surgery, recovering from it was difficult, but it was also like at the end of the year, and I knew that summer was coming, and like I always do better like mental health wise in the summer. And just like, well, it's like bright and like I don't know. So where I really struggled was the next year, so last year, because that entire year we traveled, we were at every practice. Like I say we because me and Shannon, my roommate, both had surgeries kind of around the same time, and our recovery looked the same, so we were both out again. Like that is lucky, like that we had each other to at least kind of hang out with and lean on during this time. But it was definitely tough like not playing. Like it's tough like traveling, like traveling in the UAA is a whole thing. It's going to be like probably a Thursday to a Monday situation. You're going from either like New York to Atlanta. I think like just craziness, like and it's really really tiring. So doing all that and not even getting to like participate in the fun part, which is playing in the game, it was really tough. And I definitely like struggled a lot, especially the second half of the semester with like mental health and just kind of trying to stay up about everything.
Yeah, it's the whole being sidelined from an injury. I will say this until I'm blue in the face. You just don't get it until you go through it. Really? And that's the reality of it. I don't think like there's been days where I've been so mad because of how someone treated me or what they said to me, but then you have to take a deep breath and say, they have never been hurt.
Yep.
But I agree. Just like, I mean, how did you feel? Did you feel, and like, I think you're a good person to ask this to because you are connected to the team. You are a very social person. I feel like everyone probably looks up to you. Did you still feel 100% connected to the team when you were sidelined?
No, I definitely felt, and I don't say that to like shade them in any way. No. It's just like one of those things. Like you don't feel like you're as much a part of the team when you're hurt because you're not playing. And like even like they can do whatever they want to make you feel included, to like but when you're not like stepping on the court, stepping on the field, whatever sport you play, it's just a little bit different. And we'll still bring all the positive energy like on the sidelines, we're still cheering, we're still getting after it in that sense, but it's just like different, and it's a little bit more difficult to stay positive.
Do you think there's anything that could change to make it a smoother process for injured athletes with regards to like the connection to teams?
Like, yes, definitely, but I don't know what the answer is.
No, this is honestly a question that I have thought about so much, and I'm just curious what you think.
I think that a lot of times when people are injured, especially if they're injured for like an entire year, it's really easy for the coaches to kind of not pay attention to you and like start treating you like you're the team manager or like an assistant coach. And that makes your teammates kind of look at you that way.
Yep. Okay.
So I think like it's top down, like however you're being treated by, the people who run the team is kind of going to follow through. And my experience like would have been a lot worse if I wasn't like included by the coaches and like brought in, but you know what I'm saying? Like it could be bad. And it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, I agree with that exactly. And it's one of those things like you also, as an injured player, you understand that other people are going through things. You understand that coaches are dealing with, all the things coaches deal with. Players are dealing with school and soccer the same way that you are. So like, I think like most people who I've talked to, they're not just sitting in the corner, woe is me. I think they do understand that everyone kind of has their own thing going on. It's just that one extra push to make the injured athlete feel equally as important.
Yeah, exactly.
This was something else I was curious about just because I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you. And in general, like you make jokes a lot. Like I'm not like your best friend. I don't know you that well, but like from what I do know about you, like you're just a jokester, like you're kind of witty, like you're always on, like you're just on top of it socially. So how did you take your injury? Like, did you take your injury serious? Like, did you just make jokes about it? Like, kind of what was that like for someone with your personality?
There was a lot of jokes to be made about this for sure, but not in the beginning, definitely not in the beginning. And don't even try to make a ACL joke around me in the beginning because it was so awful. But for me, it was like really scary. So I did take it very seriously because I never had any type of like knee problem or anything. So to have something like that severe happen, I was like honestly terrified, especially since like most of my game has to do with like athleticism. So I'm like, what if I can't like run fast anymore? What if I can't jump high anymore? So it was like business for me. I just was really about PT and like lifting coming back because I knew that I would have a little bit extra time just because of when I happened to tear it. I had made the decision to not come back early and try to play because I could have forced it and come back in like January, February, but that would have been like very end of the season and I would have been bad. So I decided to like properly rehab my knee. It made more sense to come in like after.
Yeah.
And so coming back in, yeah, it was definitely serious. But if I'm talking to anyone else, like besides like it was serious to me, but if I was talking to anybody, it was kind of like whatever. Like not that. So you wouldn't know, but it was serious.
No, I love that. I think like I'm a very dramatic human. Anyone who knows me knows I'm just dramatic and like that's who I am. But to me, like my injury literally was a pivotal moment in my life. Like that may seem dramatic to some people, but truly like it made me grow up and made me stop being like a drama queen with people. It just like really, it just changed my life. And like that is what I think the power of an injury can do. So like I'd love to hear to you that it was serious because like that's how I felt.
Yeah.
So let's talk about rehab because one of the biggest things that I have noticed in my change from D1 to D3 is just like you're paying for everything. You're paying for surgeries, you're paying for doctor's visits, you're paying for rehab if you're not getting it done at school. So what was that kind of like for you? Kind of talk on that.
Okay, so I am from Canada, as you know. So I have to get the school insurance, which is like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, something like that. I don't know. But it's actually a really good insurance. So my surgery was like 100% covered. And then, yeah, but I got a bill in the mail and it was like, this would have been like $90,000. I was like, Jesus. But yeah. And then for rehab and stuff like that, every appointment was just like a copay of $20. So I was like annoyed, but it's definitely worth it. Yeah. $20. Yeah.
I always thought that was crazy. And, you know, people who've listened a lot, like that's my hopes one day is to be able to raise money to give to people who need it for those things because injuries aren't something you ask for.
No, they're not. And they're like, they can be a real burden. Like if, you know, you end up in a bad situation with your insurance or like, I don't even know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was just a point that I wanted to bring up because.
No, I find that like really crazy because we have free healthcare. So I'm like, this whole thing is like really insane.
Everyone else has free healthcare.
Literally. Have you heard like Tippy talking about Sweden? I'm like, damn.
Oh, it's funny. I've never talked about money so much in a podcast, but that's just like what we're around all the time now in class.
Literally MBA things.
We break out the balance sheet for injury.
All the
Um,
expenses.
um, in general though, like how was your rehab process? Because I'm sure again, this is a common injury. People listening, you may have an idea, but it's like very planned out, it's very strategic, like you're on a program. So kind of talk about what that was like for you.
Okay, so I tore it after we were out of season. And that was one of the unfortunate parts. And that's one of the unfortunate parts of being Division 3 is you only have so many resources when it comes to like the athletic training room. So priority is like athletes who are in season. Because my surgery was so like recent, like I was also a priority, but the training room was like always full and like it was just chaotic and you couldn't always get a lot of attention. So I do feel that I did have to do a lot of that stuff myself. And that is something you have to be super diligent about. And because I was just like so scared, I think that I was just because it's like my leg, like it could affect me super long term, like walking, everything. But it was a grind for sure. Like I had to stay on top of everything. You're doing PT like at least like 5 days a week. The first part, honestly, getting into the training room was the most difficult part because it's like all, you know where Gosman is. I lived in Ridgewood, so I'd have to like load myself up in the back of Shannon's car. Like I can't bend my leg. It's the whole thing. And then you go into physical therapy and they start bending your leg. Like if anyone's listening to this who has been through an ACL like recovery, trigger warning, the bending, oh my god, they like force it essentially to like move again, and it's just like so painful. It's so painful, and it's like it feels like you're not even doing anything.
Right.
Like you're literally just bending your leg and you can't even do it. It's a lot.
I know, I've always asked, like, like with my injury compartment syndrome, it's just, I never had like that specific timeline. I never had like, you're gonna be back at this time if everything goes as planned. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
it's always been so interesting to me that, and like ACLs happen, like knock on wood, like so many times people get
Literally.
ACL torn. So you would think they have it down to a science anyways, the whole process. But yeah, I don't know. I know, and I've watched like some of my best friends go through it. Like it's a very like stressful, scary process.
It is. And you watch your body completely change. Your leg, like the muscles in your leg disappear. They shrink so much that you can't even recognize your own leg. And it's just like honestly devastating at some points, especially when you feel like you're not really getting anywhere with PT.
Which surgery did you get?
I had patella.
Okay. I don't really know all the differences, but I just know that's like one, like people with ACLs, that's like a connection you can make.
Yeah. Which one did you have? Yeah, no, it definitely is. I think patella was the only one that my surgeon offered to athletes. So I had to.
Which one's like the most common? I feel like patella is probably the most common, right?
I think now patella is the most common. I think it used to be like hamstring maybe, but apparently those ones are like 2% more likely to re-tear or something like that. I don't know, but
that's a great thing to bring up. Are you like ACLs, like not to like
talk to me about this.
like I don't want to stress you out, but like I do think that people who go through an ACL tear, that is something on their mind. So like how do you mentally get past that?
So something that helps me honestly is just wearing a knee brace. I have I don't even know what it's called.
I can already visualize which one I know you have.
Yeah. I have that one. So when I put it on, even if it's like not doing anything, like it does something, but like I just feel safe in it. Yeah, mentally. And also just getting in pickup. So I've been able to play pickup all summer, as well as like throughout the beginning of this year. And that just like playing again and like getting back into the swing of it definitely has made me feel more confident in my leg. If I didn't play pickup all summer, I would definitely still probably be at a nervous point right now.
Okay, well that was my next question. So like where are you at now? How are you feeling about like getting a season in finally?
Yes. I'm super excited to get the season in, and honestly, I couldn't really have asked for like a better freshman class coming in. So I'm really excited to see what we're able to do this year. I don't think I'm honestly like not too nervous, like knock on all the wood to re-tear. I feel like I'm at a good place right now. And I also feel like this has helped me in a way because I really used to struggle with just being chaotic and like all over the place. And when I tore my ACL, I kind of had to like ground myself because I can't just be flying all over the place. It makes me nervous now. So I have time to make more decisions and just play a little bit smarter.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know. Did that answer your question? I feel like I went all over the place.
Oh, no, I think that's good. And I'm kind of curious. This is an identity crisis that older athletes or injured athletes, whatever, we all kind of are going through at some point, but like you're done after this year, right? So like, what's kind of going through your mind? It's scary.
It's like wild. I don't know. See, I don't really know exactly what I'm gonna do yet. And I am definitely still interested in like looking at playing overseas.
Okay.
So I'm not looking at it like it's like
Done.
done. It might be, it might not be. If it is, I think I'm okay with it. If it's not, I want to travel. You know what I'm saying? I love basketball, but I've like been playing for a pretty long time, and I think I'll always find a way to like play it.
Mhm.
So I think when the time comes, you can check back with me, but I feel okay right now.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. And like, I think, personally, my injury is what gave me that comfort of knowing it's coming to an end soon and like being okay with that.
Yeah. I honestly like after like tearing my ACL, I didn't even know. Like, especially in that moment, I was like, am I even gonna like play another like
So
season?
you're more grateful for the extra
Yeah.
time.
So I literally just feel lucky that I'm even able to have another season like at Brandeis.
Right. No, I think that's really good. And my last question is talk a little bit about like what you want to do one day, because I think it's really cool. The whole, like, I know you still want to be around the sport and stuff. So kind of just like give us your dream, like after your MBA, like.
Okay, after I get my MBA, the plan is kind of to work in marketing, some type of like social media marketing or digital marketing, best case scenario. And that it would be super awesome if I could work for, one of like the NBA, WNBA teams, something like that. Stay around basketball. I know there's a ton of opportunities in that space. Like I had an internship and I got to work with the NBA G League and like rebranding, and I think that's something that's really, really growing. And I'm excited because it's really, really growing on the women's side. So I'm hoping, like, best case scenario, I get to work in women's professional basketball and marketing, but I'll see what I'm offered. Dream job. I want to travel and make videos, but
Oh,
yeah.
videography?
Huh?
Are you like into videoing and stuff?
I like editing videos, but I'm more so I'm interested in like just like documenting what I'm doing and like telling stories to people, showing them like new places.
Yeah, my dream. I just like want to be a YouTuber so bad, but like
Right? That's what I'm saying. Like that would be the life.
we need to just hold each other accountable and start them, and then
Literally
let each other embarrass ourselves a little in the beginning, and then just like
find our niche. Literally. Not us breaking our backs to get our MBAs right now. We want to be YouTubers.
Okay, well, those are all the questions I have. Is there anything that you want to talk about or anything you have a question of? Anything at all? This is your episode.
My episode. Basically, just like if you're struggling with an injury, you're probably gonna benefit more from that injury than like you think you are. There's a lot of really, really important lessons and good lessons that come with getting like a serious injury, and it honestly helps you mature faster. It helps you be way more empathetic, and it makes you a better person. So if it's something you're struggling with, it's not the end of the world, and like athletics are only so much of your life. There's like way more important things.
That is such a good closing thought.
You liked it? Good.
No, that was good. I just like it's when you're in it, like especially like maybe like let's say a freshman, like when you're in that and you get hurt, like you do feel like your world is crashing down in front of you.
One of my I guess we're closing, but one of my actually really good friends tore her ACL freshman year at Adelphi, and like that was really tough for her. I know it was.
But you have to, I like perspective is everything, and like having it's a mature thought to have that like, oh, this is a good thing, but yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's all on how you view it.
Well, thank you for coming on. I'm excited we did this because we talked about it a few weeks ago, and I'm happy.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.